everybody. Constantly watching people go, oh, you need to be authentic, or you need more transparency there. And so we have this idea, especially in the social media world, that we have to either let all of our ugly hang out, like every nasty word that we want to say. Like, it's funny to me when people say, and this is not against you if you enjoy the F word, because you know what? I enjoy it every now and again too, like in the Sam Jackson way. Anybody that can swear like really, really well, I'm like, high five to you. While that's not how I usually talk, there have been times when it has escaped my lips. But what makes me just laugh is when people say to me, well, the F word, that's me being authentic. It actually, that's you not able to find a better word. That's you being frustrated. It's not you like being authentic. Authenticity has nothing to do with the words that you say and everything to do with the actions that you provide and the way you sort of walk through life. So we have this idea that authenticity is one thing based on our culture and what we see in social media. And, this idea that people need to be authentic in order to do that. They just have to just be who they are. And yes, you should be who you are. Yes, yes, yes. But you have to ask yourself, in that journey, do you like who you are? And are you being your best self? Are you showing up as best as you can? Here's the deal. If you don't care, you won't be watching this anyway. If you don't care and you just show up as you are, well, then that is like who you are. And that is your authentic self for sure. But if you are instead somebody who is striving to sort of soften those rough edges, that's what we're doing with this inner work piece. So I mentioned at the beginning we had been watching this guy on YouTube that was a doctor, and he was talking about how denying our authentic self creates disease in the body later, which I was, for one, like completely floored, because he's a general practitioner, so he was not a natural doctor. And I will absolutely dig up the link if y'all want it. I can put it in the replay for YouTube, and if I forget, please just ask me. So a good friend sent it to me, and I was just floored by the truth that he was just dropping. I just loved what he was saying. This whole documentary, it wasn't very long. It was maybe 20 minutes. And he was talking about what we do as we're in that early stage of childhood, that time when our subconscious is being built. What we do is we tend to deny some of our needs because we're trying to please a parent, because we're trying to, get the love that we need, so basic human need for love, and to be cared for, especially when we're young. So we go, we go to this place of bending to meet somebody else's will. Now, that doesn't always happen, but it can happen even to the best of us. And for those of us that are, becoming aware, or who are already aware of ourselves, we want to step back and go, okay, is this happening somehow with my children? And like I said, even the best of us, it happens too. So we have to be really keenly aware of temperament so that we can understand ourselves and understand them, so that we aren't asking them to be non-authentic, inauthentic. Like I said, I don't know if that's a word. I promise I'm a learned person. But when we deny that authentic self, it chips away at us. And we, some temperaments especially, will hang on to it in very, very unhealthy ways. And that shows up as disease later in life. I think that all temperaments have some way that they sort of suppress that authentic nature. And a diving into temperament and understanding ourselves then really helps you flourish in that nature. Back to this idea that, well, this is just how I am. If you are truly ready and willing to dive into how you show up, then you look at what a balanced person for this temperament might look like, and you compare to how you're showing up, and you ask yourself, is this really authentic? One case that there's a couple that come to mind, but I have dear friend who we've been talking about her temperament, and I'm not going to share any names. But we've been talking about this need for her to be busy, and this need for her to rush through things, and how sometimes she does not, because it could happen. And I'm talking about a sanguine temperament. I actually have a couple of friends that I'm working with right now that are going through this. But what happens with the sanguine is if they have not developed enough empathy, then they are really easy to dismiss somebody. Like, I don't need to hear that. I want to walk away. And even if they have worked to develop their empathy, what can sometimes happen is, because it's so uncomfortable for you to slow down and to hear what they have to say if it's critical, you just find something else to do. It's easy to distract yourself. It's easy for you to decide, this doesn't work for me, I'm taking my ball and going home. And that's often the mechanism of the sanguine, and that is not authentic. Even though, yes, that's what a sanguine would do, that's not what a balanced sanguine would do. So a balanced sanguine would come to the table and say, I'm listening, I hear you, even if it's uncomfortable. So we have to sort of chip away a bit at sort of the natural man, if you will, like how we just show up as, like, come as you are, and we have to then decide, what is it that I'm seeking? Am I seeking a space where I can get along with many people, and where I have insight and I have less drama in my life, and I understand myself, and I'm working on my anger, I'm working to not be, where the choleric might be overly angry, the melancholy might be overly depressed. If I'm working to balance all those people, or all those situations, all those feelings, emotions, that is authenticity. That is being authentic. When we have taken the time to study and know who we are, that is being authentic. Does that mean we're going to be authentic 100% of the time? No, because we're human beings, and that does not often happen. But the more you strive, the easier it gets. The more you do it, it's like a muscle. So the more you do it, the easier it is for you. The more you work to, like somebody like me who's a choleric, the more you work to hold your tongue, it gets easier. I promise it gets easier. Whether it be with your kids or with somebody who just irritates you, or you're like, come on, get to the point. You find ways to not have that body language of, come on, let's go. You step back and you start to listen, and you become the person that's listening. What happens when you do that is so magical and beautiful. The world opens to you in so many ways, because you're not just seeing how your temperament sees it then. You are beginning to see how other people see the world, because you have stopped, you have humbled yourself to understanding, and you have taken the time to understand where they're coming from. So I want you to consider the last few conflicts you've been in, and you're going to consider your temperament at the same time. And in doing that, I want you to see the seeds of the conflict. Where did they come from? What was the what was the mechanism for momentum that helped it grow into the ugly that became the conflict? And at what point in that could you have, even if it's not your fault, because nothing's ever our fault. Nothing's ever our fault, right? But at what point in that conflict could you have taken a step back and changed the course of the conflict? Even if it was something that needed to happen, even if it was a situation where you needed to have a parting of ways with this person, or you needed to have a change be made, even if that was the necessary outcome, was there a time in that conflict where you could have slowed down and considered the other possibilities? When we can start doing that, we become peacemakers. We become builders of worlds. And that only happens when we become our authentic selves, and we remember who we were before all that programming that happened. Because underneath there, like I said, I truly believe that temperament belongs to your soul. then that piece of that human authenticity sits on top. And then you have all this other stuff that happens to us in life, right? You know, we're either born to a family that really wanted us, and we were a really wanted child, and a family that really worked to nurture us. That doesn't mean that we always got our way. There's this funny, interesting thing like, I'm being abused. Well, why? Well, because I'm not getting my way. No. That's not how life works. When we are working to nurture a child in our home, or our parents working to nurture, as adults, we can step back and we can look at what the circumstances were. It's really easy to be angry and upset at our parents when we don't take the time to consider what their situation was. I had a huge change in how I felt about my own parents, and I love my parents dearly, my mother especially, and my stepdad, love them dearly, but I have a very estranged relationship with my birth father, but I have come to a place where I can forgive him. That doesn't mean I have to be with him. And there's something very magical that comes from really taking the time to study your temperament, study their temperament, and study the conflict. And that's not like overthinking, but just studying the conflict and studying how they showed up based on their own past and their need for authenticity, that they weren't showing up their best selves. So it's this space of understanding that other person. So you see, I can have empathy for my birth father. I don't have to have a relationship with him, but I can have empathy for him. I can know and understand some of his childhood and see how those became the seeds for the abusive person that he became. Doesn't mean I have to be with him, be near him, because he still continues those beliefs and those those actions, but I can absolutely have a boundary and forgive him for it. It also, understanding that, helped me love my mother even more, because I knew that she had dealt with all of that soup that was him, and she, in her space of coming from her childhood where she was nurtured and loved, but it was during a post-depression time, and things were different, and so she went from that space to being with an abuser, and that shaped who she was. So then it's taken her time to become the authentic person that she was before all of that. So when we can take time to really appreciate the other person in the conflict, or the other person that we are struggling with, like I said, something magical happens. And we gain a better sense of our own authenticity when we can look at somebody else. And it gives us the opportunity to slow down, to look at everybody else, to sort of reflect in a way that gives us more pause. It gives us a better appreciation, and it allows us to be more balanced in our own temperament. You really want to listen to the way you speak to yourself, to people around you. One of the friends, like I said, that I was working with, she's struggling with her son a little bit, and because he doesn't like himself, and she's like, I just don't understand. I'm affirming all the time, and I said, yes, but you're also affirming in the negative, because I hear you say all the time when we're together, dang it, I'm so dumb. Why did I do that? Instead of giving yourself the grace that you need to and fixing the habit, breaking the habit, if there's a habit that needs to be broken, you spend time being mad at yourself. Guess what? Your kids see that, ladies. If you are constantly talking about how dumb you are, how you're not worthy, how poor you are, how you money doesn't grow on trees, how you don't like where you live. If you are filling your space with that energy, guess what? That's what they're soaking up. That's what they're taking in. That's what you're building in that subconscious place that is almost completely filled by the time they're 7. By the time that veil closes, it's almost completely filled. So if you have been doing that, it's time to correct that. It's time to get into a space of, wait a minute, that's not authentic. Telling it like it is not authentic, because guess what? No matter how thinly you slice a magnet, there's still two sides. Always. Always. So there's always two sides to everything. And usually what I tell people is yours, mine, and the truth. Because the truth is somewhere in the middle. So to be, excuse me, to become the authentic person you want to be, you have to realize that what comes out of your mouth is what they're soaking up. And it's not just them. It's people around you. So I'm going to challenge you. If you're in a spot, and I know some of you are, and you've expressed this to me, where you feel like all the good friends you had just sort of left you, sometimes you have to ask yourself, am I the problem? It is my lack of being able to show up authentically part of the problem. Doesn't mean it always is, but it's definitely a place to look at. I think that as we grow, we start to look at things that our parents did in a whole new light. As our children grow, you know how many times in the last year, with all the struggles we had with our adult daughter, that I had called my mother and said, I am sorry I was such a brat when I was 18 years old. She's like, oh, honey, it's okay. Because we start to turn things around and we start to really see some things for what they were. And you know, that's where that hindsight's always 20/20 thing comes in. We have to really be able to be proactive about it as it's happening and ask yourself, okay, how can I change the situation without making it crazy? Yes, the first time I heard my son say, I can't do this, I'm stupid, it truly hit me that I'm passing down to him. I stopped, but then it's been hard. Because we have all this subconscious programming, we have to really work to undo it. Sorry, my voice is getting all dry. Excuse me. We have to work to undo it, and it takes time. The best times to work on that are in that stage when you're almost awake in the morning and that stage when you're almost asleep at night. And so this is one reason why I say get up before your kids, so you have some alone time in the morning where you can breathe before they're like, cheep, 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 please feed me, like that, and you feel shot out of a cannon. So I would, if you have, most of you are listening on your phones, so most of you have a voice recording app. On your voice recording app, record yourself saying some positive affirmations. And you know, affirmations kind of get a bad rap sometimes because people go, oh, you can't do anything with affirmations. Not true. But you have to feel it. You have to feel it and be excited about it. And you have to feel the energy behind it. If you just say, oh, I'm so happy and grateful that I have all the money I need. Guess what? The universe is like, I didn't feel that. You're not going to get that. But if instead you affirm, like, I am so happy and grateful, I am showing up as the mom that I want to be. And you feel it, you put all that feeling behind it. And if you're having a hard time convincing yourself, think back on the times when you did show up exactly how you wanted to be. And if you feel like you haven't done that lately, then guess what? Create a new one. And as you're creating it, feel it, every ounce of it in your whole body. And mentally say to yourself, I want to capture this feeling. And hold on to it as long as you can. Then you're going to record this track. And it doesn't have to be long, maybe a minute. Maybe 30 seconds, because you can always put on repeat. Start with just 4 or 5 affirmations of goodwill towards yourself. I am good enough. I am smart enough. I can do hard things. I'm so happy and grateful that I overcome challenges easily. I am so happy and grateful that I show up as the mother that I want to be. I am so happy and grateful that I show up as the wife that I want to be. I am so happy and grateful that my relationships are all strong and loving. I am so happy and grateful that I'm on top of my planning and I produce the lessons or I bring forth the lessons that my children need and want. I am so happy and grateful that I go to bed each night feeling fulfilled. Those are the sorts of things you want to put on this audio track that you're going to make for yourself. So save it and then grab some headphones. And at night, as you're nursing that baby to sleep or as you're going to bed, you want it completely immersed. I love headphones also because when it's your own personal one, it's much more intimate. When it's just you and yourself, you might feel uncomfortable. Like Eric would not have a problem with it, but I know some moms would feel really uncomfortable. So having it in your ears as you go to sleep, you might say to me, Melissa, I don't sleep with my phone near me. I get it. All right, I get it. But we're trying to retrain your brain. It's not happening forever. It's just for a time being, a small time period. One thing that I've done is I have one that I like that's not mine, and hi honey, my husband's watching, and I took this one and I put it to my alarm, so it's my alarm in the morning, and so that's the first thing I hear. The alarm goes off, and as I'm starting to wake up, I'm hearing, I'm good enough, I can rule this day. Things go, things come to me effortlessly. Like all of those things are the things that I'm hearing as I start my day. And I do the same thing at night. I do the same, if I'm working at the computer, I will listen to it on low and just listen as I type. It becomes such a beautiful way to start to really transform some of that thinking. And I know a lot of you will listen to me, think it's great, and still not do it. But if you want true change in your life, you have to be willing to do something that you haven't done before. So I want you to be willing to step forward and do that. If you did it, I want you to tag me on Instagram or Facebook and say, hey, I did it. I want you to really own it. Own this space. Own this decision to be authentic. Like really authentic. And to do that, you have to decide how you're showing up. And sort of in that, you see it almost immediately with your family. Sometimes you're going to have kids that are like, who is this lady? And they're not going to believe that it's going to stay. But the more work you do at it, the more consistency you have, the easier it will be for you. All temperaments have these struggles. They're just in different ways. So where, like I said, the sanguine will find herself too busy so that she can run away from the problems. Often what the sanguine does is she comes in and she creates a problem, stirs it, and then runs away because she doesn't want to hear the criticism. Happens a lot. The choleric will just be super explosive a lot, because when they're explosive, they know people listen. Because somewhere in their development, somebody wasn't listening to them. Maybe lots of somebodies weren't listening to them. They didn't feel heard. So they felt like the only way they could feel heard was to be loud. And as you heal that, you're not so loud. I remember when I was going through my divorce, my mother said to me, you yell a lot. And I remember it like cutting me to my core and crying, because I was really trying to be on this path of not being that person. And to know that she knew it and that she recognized it in me, it was almost embarrassment. And I remember that day thinking, nobody's ever going to say that to me again, like ever. And it was the beginning of this journey. That was probably 15 or so years ago, where I just decided this was no longer. This does not have to be who I am. You know, I'm Italian, we're loud people, but I don't have to be the yeller, the mean yeller. There's a difference between, hey y'all, how are you doing? And, being mean, to be heard. I'm much more calm and even keeled when it comes to that. But it has taken a lot of study and a lot of working on myself. The phlegmatic will just recoil and decide not to do anything, and people will think they're lazy. Probably because some point in those developing years, somebody said they were lazy, or aren't they so cute? They just love to be lazy on the couch all day. And in order to maintain that love connection of somebody who told you that you were cute, you continue to do what they thought was so cute, because that's how you learn to show up. So you have to really look at where a lot of those habits come from. When it comes to let's see, got through all the melancholy. The melancholy will often show up as the saddest person there, and she's not sad inside. She's not sad inside, but because she's gotten reinforcement from that space. From those first years in life, everybody was so worried about her and being sad all the time. And everybody was so worried and maybe doted on her more than she needed to. She is not convinced that she has the strength, the worthiness, or the ability to walk forward and be strong. And so to find that authentic self in you, you've got to chip away at that temperament of yours and work to balance. Balanced temperament is authentic self. And it's not a matter of suppressing. It's not a matter of suppressing anger. It's a matter of, or suppressing sadness or suppressing anything. It's a matter of reframing and looking at things and looking at the lesson in things and really truly understanding that this too shall pass and that we can get through this into the next space. But it doesn't happen if you don't work. Later, live authentically. Have a wonderful day.